Jack Carter was an ordinary human. He worked as a repair technician on a boring space station near the outer edge of the Zarith-9 system. Every day he fixed broken machines, cleaned air filters, and drank the same awful protein shakes from the vending machine. Life was quiet. Too quiet. One day, while checking messages on his datapad, Jack saw a glowing invitation to the honorable guest from Earth. You are invited to the great royal event of Elindra. Location: Palace of the Moons, Elindra Prime. Time: 0700, Standard Galactic Time. Dress: formal armor or noble robes. Jack blinked. He scratched his head. Royal event? What the heck? Must be a tech expo or something, he said to himself. He didn't remember signing up for anything, but the invitation was real and had security clearance codes attached. He thought maybe his name got randomly picked from a list. He laughed and shrugged. Free trip? Why not? Jack packed a small bag and wore his best outfit, a clean black jumpsuit with silver trim as formal wear. He booked a quick shuttle and headed to the planet Elindra. It's famous for its beautiful blue skies and strange alien castles. When he landed at the palace gates, two tall guards with golden helmets looked him up and down. You are ... the champion? One asked, confused. Jack nodded slowly. I guess so? They bowed. This way, honored one. Jack was led through giant doors into a hall made of shining crystal. Hundreds of alien nobles stood around, all in glowing robes and ceremonial armor. The air smelled like sweet fire and flowers. Strange music played from floating orbs. Everyone turned to stare at him. Jack gulped. Wow, this is not a tech conference, and a loud voice echoed through the hall. Let the royal binding ceremony begin. A tall woman walked down the golden steps at the far end of the hall. She was stunning tall with glowing silver eyes, smooth purple skin, and long white hair that floated slightly in the air like silk underwater. Her golden armor shone with jewels. She looked strong, proud, and very serious. The princess, someone whispered. Princess Kalira.
Jack froze.
Wait, royal wedding? He looked around and saw no other groom. That's when panic hit him. Oh no, he whispered. This isn't a party. This is a wedding, and they think I'm the groom. Before he could run, the high priestess, wearing robes of light, raised her staff and said, Let the chosen one step forward. Everyone turned toward Jack. He laughed nervously and raised a hand. I think there's been a mistake. The princess stepped down the stairs and stopped in front of him, looked surprised. Her silver eyes narrowed as she scanned his. Face, you are the one, she asked, clearly unsure. I don't know what's going on, Jack said. I thought this was a... The crowd gasped as the high priestess placed a glowing crystal between them. By ancient law, priestess said, if the princess and the champion touch hands before the moons align, their fates will be bound. Forever? Kalira looked angry. I didn't agree to this. The ritual was for show, not real. But just as she turned to argue, Jack stumbled and grabbed her hand to steady himself. A bright white light exploded around them. Everyone gasped. The crystal shattered. A strange mark appeared on both their hands, glowing with ancient symbols. The palace shook slightly, and then everything fell silent. The high priestess whispered, It is done. They are bound. Jack blinked. Wait, what just happened? You just became the husband of the Princess of Elindra, a noble nearby whispered, looking pale. Kalira stared at him, shocked and furious. Jack looked at her, confused and terrified. I really need to sit down, he muttered later. That evening Jack sat in a golden chair in a large room filled with glowing lights. Servants brought him food he couldn't name. Every noble who passed by stared at him like he was an insect or a god, they weren't sure which. Kalira stormed into the room, followed by two guards. Her armor had been replaced by a royal gown, made of shining threads. You, human, she shouted. Jack stood up. Listen, I swear, I didn't know this was a wedding. I was supposed to marry a warrior prince from the Zolar Empire. She snapped. This was only a symbolic ceremony. We planned to cancel it after the political show was done. But you triggered the bond. Jack held up his hands. I thought this was a tech event. I was just following an invitation. I didn't mean to bond with anyone. Kalira paced like a caged lion. By our law, once the bond is formed, it cannot be broken unless she stopped. Unless what? Jack asked, nervous. Kalira looked him straight in the eye. Unless one of us dies. Jack went pale. Well, hope that's not the plan. She sighed and sat down across from him. Her anger slowly turned into confusion. You're not a warrior. You're not even a soldier. What are you? Jack smiled weakly. I'm a repair technician. I fix things. Air filters? Power cores. Broken coffee machines. Kalira blinked. Coffee machines, he shrugged. Yeah, look, I really didn't mean to crash your wedding. Kalira studied him for a long moment. You're honest, she finally said. Jack scratched the back of his head. I try. She stood up.
Fine.
Until we figure this out, you will stay in the palace. But don't expect royal treatment. No problem, Jack said quickly. I'll just stay out of your way. Kalira turned and walked out. But before leaving, she said, and don't touch me again. Or I might change my mind about the no-killing rule. Jack let out a deep breath. Great, first day on a new planet and I married a warrior. Princess by accident. He looked up at the stars through the tall window and whispered, this is going to be a very weird week. The sun rose over the crystal towers of Alindra's capital city. Birds with glowing wings flew across the pink sky. The palace shimmered with morning light. Jack Carter woke up in a soft, round bed that smelled like flowers. Gentle voice called, Out. Human, your morning meal has arrived. A small floating robot rolled forward and placed a tray near the bed. It held glowing fruits, blue bread, and something that smelled like bacon but moved a little. Jack sat up, rubbing his eyes. Still not a dream, huh? Yesterday he was a nobody on a space station. Now he was married to an alien princess, and she hated him. He picked up a fruit and bit it, sweet, like honey mixed with lemon, as he ate. 2 guards entered. Her Highness demands your presence in the Hall of Storms, one said. Storms. That sounds friendly, Jack muttered. He followed them down long, shiny halls filled with alien art and floating lights. When he entered the hall, it was filled with royal advisors, nobles, soldiers, and a very angry Princess Kalira. She stood. In the center, wearing silver armor and a long red cape, bring him forward, she ordered. Jack walked forward slowly. Good morning, Kalira pointed at him. This human has broken every tradition of our people. He is not a warrior. Has no house, no honor, and no bloodline. Yet he stands as my bonded mate. Gasps echoed through the room. An old noble shouted, The bond must be broken. Our people cannot follow a human. A general stepped forward. Give us the order, princess. We will remove him, quietly. Jack looked around, heart pounding. Wait, remove me? Kalira raised her hand. Enough. Everyone fell silent. I do not trust this human, she said. But the law is the law. The bond is sealed. To break it would bring bad luck and shame to my name. The priestess nodded. Once the ceremony is complete, only death or public rejection can end the bond. Then I reject him, Kalira. No, said the priestess. It must be done during the next red moon, in front of the people. That is 18 days from now. Kalira clenched her fists. Jack raised a hand nervously. I can just go back to Earth if that helps. No, said one noble sharply. The bond ties your soul to hers. If you leave now, she may suffer pain, madness, or worse. Kalira looked away, jaw tight. So I'm stuck with you. Jack nodded slowly. Guess so. She turned back to the room. Till the rejection ceremony, he will stay in the palace. But he is no husband. He is my servant. The room gasped again. Jack blinked. Wait, what? You will do as I say, she continued coldly. You will clean, serve, and stay out of my way. If you survive until the red moon, you'll be free. Jack sighed. Sure, sounds like a deal. Life as the princess's servant that evening. Jack was given a small room near the royal kitchens. It wasn't bad. Soft bed, clean clothes, even a music orb that played soft alien jazz. He was given duties: clean her armor, sort scrolls in the library, carry messages between council rooms, and refill her drink during meetings. Every time Kelleray looked at him, it was with fire in her eyes. But she never yelled again, not in public. Palace staff whispered about him in the halls. "That's the human. He looks weak. But did you hear? He fixed the palace lights yesterday. He said thank you to a servant. So strange." Jack didn't care. Kept his head down and worked. He was used to being ignored. Now, at least he had something to do. One afternoon, he was called to Kaler's training yard. She was practicing with a long energy spear, spinning and slicing through the air like a dance of death. "Hold the target board," she said without looking at him. Jack held a round shield on a pole, trembling a bit. "Please don't kill me." She struck hard, each blow shaking his arms. "You're not as weak as you look," she said. "Thanks, I guess." After training, she sat down and drank glowing water. Jack handed her a towel. She looked at him. "You're strange." Jack smiled. "Takes one to know one." She raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" "It means you're strange too." For a moment, Kalira almost smiled, but she quickly stood up and walked away. A growing threat while Jack tried to survive royal life. Something darker was happening in the shadows. Lord Varnix, powerful noble with a face like a cracked mirror, met with a group of generals in a secret chamber. "This human weakens the princess," Varnix hissed. "The people are laughing. Other empires watch us closely. We must act before she chooses him." "For real," but the bond, one general said. "Can be broken," Varnix interrupted. "If the people turn against him, if he dies before the red moon, then she will be free. And I will take her place." Eyes widened. "You plan to take the throne?" Someone whispered, "I plan to save this empire," Varnix said with a cold smile. The hero no one expected. One evening, a fire broke out in the lower halls of the palace. Screams echoed as smoke filled the air. Jack, passing by with a tray of books, saw small alien servant children trapped behind a broken door. He grabbed a nearby tool and smashed the control panel. The door opened. He ran in, coughing, and carried the children out one by one. Guards and nobles rushed in, shocked to see the human risking his life. Kalira arrived just as Jack stumbled out, holding the last child. His clothes were burned and he was coughing badly. She ran to him without thinking. "Why did you do that?" she demanded. He looked up, blinking through smoke. "Because they needed help. That's what humans do." For the first time, she looked at him not as a problem, but as something more. End of part 2, Hooked that night. Kalira stood on her balcony, watching the stars. Her mind was full of questions. Why did this weak, strange human risk his life for her people? Why did she feel different when he smiled at her? Down below in his small room, Jack slept peacefully for the first time in days, unaware that the palace now whispered his name, not with hate, but with wonder. And somewhere deep in the shadows, Lord Varnix gave the final order. Make sure the human doesn't live to see the red moon. Jack Carter had now been in the palace for 8 days. Each morning, he woke up in his small room beside the kitchens, stretched his back, and started his duties. He cleaned armor, fixed broken panels, helped old nobles walk upstairs, and even repaired the palace laundry machine, which had been broken for years. At first, the staff laughed at him. Now, they smiled when they saw him. One day, a young servant girl whispered, "Sir Jack, thank you for helping me with the scrolls yesterday." He smiled. "No need to call me sir. I'm just the guy who married the wrong princess." She giggled and ran off. Yes, life was still strange, but Jack had stopped feeling like a total outsider. Some guards nodded to him, the cook secretly gave him extra bread. Even Kalira had stopped yelling at him. Most of the time, whispers in the palace inside, the royal council chamber, Princess Kalira sat in her throne, silent. Her advisors spoke in low voices. The people are talking, one said. They say the human is kind, helpful, another. Noble added. A group of merchants are selling small statues of him, calling him the accidental prince. Kalira's eyes narrowed. They are laughing at me, she asked coldly. No, the noble replied carefully. They are admiring him. She said nothing. In her heart, she didn't understand it. Jack wasn't strong. He didn't fight or shout, wasn't rich or noble. But he listened. He helped. He smiled even when others frowned. It confused her. Later that day, Kalira walked past the training grounds. She stopped when she saw something strange. Jack was standing in front of 10 palace guards. They laughed as he tried to hold a training sword. Left foot forward. One shouted, double quotes, "No, no, you're holding it like a shovel." Another joked. Jack grinned. "I am a professional shovel holder." Kalira watched silently as Jack tried again. This time, he swung the sword better. The guards clapped. She turned and walked away, hiding a small smile. Trouble arrives that night. The skies above Alindra turned red. A rare solar event called the Twin Flame Eclipse was happening. People gathered to watch. Kalira stood on her balcony in a dark silver cloak. Jack walked up beside her. Quiet. Beautiful, he said. Looking at the sky, she nodded. Then she surprised him by saying, "You've been." "Better than expected," Jack smiled. "You mean I'm not a complete failure?" She smirked slightly. "You're a very strange man." They stood in silence for a while. But below the palace, danger was rising. Lord Varnix's assassins had entered the lower halls. Hiding in the shadows, attack in the garden later that night, Jack went for a short walk in the royal garden. He liked the glowing flowers and the small ponds that hummed when wind passed over them. He bent down to pick a flower when he heard a soft step, then another. He turned, 3 masked figures jumped at him with glowing knives. Jack rolled to the side, falling into a bush. Hey, I'm just the janitor husband," he shouted. One assassin swung a blade. Jack blocked it with a shovel left nearby. He fought back badly. But he kept moving, kept dodging, kept yelling for help. One knife cut his shoulder, another sliced. His leg, he fell backward. Then boom, flash of silver light. Kalira landed between them, spinning her twin swords. In seconds, 2 assassins were down. The third ran. Jack lay on the ground, bleeding. "You came," he whispered. Kalira knelt beside him. "You stupid, stupid man. Why were you alone?" "I like flowers," he coughed. She laughed once. "Just once." Then she lifted him into her arms. Healing in truth, Jack woke in the royal med bay, bandaged and sore. Kalira sat beside him. "3 nights ago," she said, "you saved children from fire. Last night, you almost died because you love quiet walks." Jack groaned. "If I had known being your husband was this dangerous, I would have stayed on my space station." She looked at him seriously. "You could still leave after the red moon. You'll be free." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know." Kalira stood. "Rest now. I have questions to ask my council." Growing storm Lord Varnix sat in his dark chamber, fuming. "The human survives again," he shouted. "Even the assassins failed." The spy nodded. "The princess came to save him." Varnox's eyes burned. "She's starting to care for him. This must not happen." He slammed his fist on the table. "Prepare the trial of honor. We will force the human into the arena." Announcement of the trial the next morning. The entire court was gathered. Kalira stood beside Jack, her hands still glowing faintly with the bond mark. Lord Varnix stepped forward. "Your Highness," he said with a fake bow. "We cannot allow this human to live in our palace without earning honor." Jack frowned. "I didn't ask to come here in the first place," Varnix continued. "We request the trial of honor. Let him fight for his place." Gasps filled the hall. Kalira stepped forward. "You asked for this because he is human, not because he lacks honor." Varnix smiled coldly. "He must stand in the arena. If he loses, the bond will be broken by shame. If he wins, he may stay." Turned to Kalira. "What's this trial?" "A duel," she said. "Public fight, you can refuse." Jack took a deep breath. No, I'll do it. Kalira's eyes widened. You could die. Jack looked at her, then at the nobles. If I run, they'll always hate me. If I fight, maybe I can earn some respect. Training begins for the next 3 days. Kalira personally trained Jack. She showed him how to move, how to dodge, how to think like a fighter. He wasn't strong, but he was clever. He learned quickly. He asked questions. He made traps. He planned. You are not a warrior, Kalira said on the last day, but you are something better. Jack smiled. I'm a survivor. End of part 3. Hook. The arena was ready. The crowd gathered. Jack stood in the middle, holding a strange energy staff. He had modified himself. Across from him stood a giant armored champion, strong. It's brutal and ready to kill. But Jack didn't look. Afraid, he looked focused. And in the royal box, Kalira leaned forward, whispering, "Show them who you are, Jack." The grand arena of Alindra was packed. Thousands of aliens sat in their seats, cheering loudly. Colored banners waved in the wind, and floating cameras buzzed around, recording every second. At the center of the sand-covered battlefield stood Jack Carter, wearing light armor and holding a staff he had rebuilt from broken palace parts. His heart pounded in his chest, but his eyes were calm. Across from him stood General Bragna, beast of a man, over 7 feet tall, covered in black armor. Bragna was known for crushing enemies in seconds. Princess Kalira sat in the royal box above the arena. Her hands were tight on the railing. She didn't want Jack to fight, but she knew this was the only way to protect him. The bell rang. The trial of honor had begun. The fight begins. Braun charged forward like a storm. He swung his massive blade, aiming for Jack's head. Jack ducked, rolled, and jabbed with his staff. The strike bounced off the general's armor. The crowd laughed. They thought it would be over in seconds, but Jack had a plan. He remembered what Kalira had taught him. You are not stronger, but you are smarter. Jack used his speed, stayed low, dodged attacks, and used his environment. He kicked sand into Bragna's eyes. He jumped off a fallen column to land behind the general and struck him in the back. It barely hurt Bragna. It annoyed him. You play like a child, the general growled. Jack grinned. Then why are you sweating? Brogdon roared and rushed forward again. The crowd begins to change at first. The crowd cheered for Brogdon. But as Jack kept dodging, surviving, and landing small hits, their cheers turned to curiosity. Then two. Support? He's lasting longer than expected, someone said. He's using tricks. He's actually good. Kalira leaned forward, eyes full of fire. She whispered, "Come on, Jack. Don't stop." The Trapjack had spent the last night studying the arena map. He knew there were small cracks in the stone near the center, as Brogdon chased him. Jack jumped over the cracked spot and turned suddenly. He shouted, "Hey, metalhead!" "Missed me again." Brogdon, blinded by anger, ran straight at him. Jack jumped aside. Crack! The ground broke under Brogdon's heavy armor. His foot sank deep into the hole. Before the general could pull himself free, Jack leaped forward, spun his staff, and smashed the weak spot in Brogdon's armor at his shoulder joint. Sparks flew. Brogdon howled. Jack spun again and hit the helmet with all his strength. The giant dropped to one knee. The crowd gasped. Kalira stood up. The arena fell silent. Jack pointed his staff at Brogdon's face. Brogdon grunted. "Do it. Finish me." Brogdon. Jack shook his head. "No, this is not about killing. This is about honor." He turned to the judges. "Do I have mine?" The high judge stood. "You have it, human. You have earned it." The arena exploded in cheers after the trial later. In the healing room, Jack sat on a bench, covered in bruises and sweat. Kalira entered quietly. She looked at him, then sat beside him. "You could have died," she said softly. Jack nodded. But I didn't." There was silence between them. Then Kalira asked, "Why didn't you kill him?" Jack looked at her. "Because I'm not here to make enemies. I'm just ... trying to survive." She stared at him for a long time. Then she said something he never expected. "You are more Alindran than most warriors I know." Jack blinked. Was that a compliment? Kalira stood and turned away.
Oh.
Don't get used to it. But as she walked out, she smiled. Whispers turned to loyalty. The news of Jack's victory spread across the planet. People who once mocked him now cheered his name. Merchants named drinks after him. Children played games pretending to be the human champion. Even nobles who once wanted him gone began to see him differently. One advisor told Kalira, "If you rejected him now, the people might turn on us." Kalira gave no reply. But her thoughts were full of Jack. She remembered how he fought not with anger, but with heart. How he saved the children. How he never asked for anything. And most of all, how he looked at her not as a princess, but as a person. A private moment one quiet night, Kalira found Jack sitting in the palace garden. The moon was high. The stars were bright. She walked over and sat beside him. Jack smiled. "Can't sleep either?" "No," she said. They sat in silence for a while. Then Kalira spoke. "You are?" "Not what I expected." Jack looked at her. "You're not either." She smiled slightly. "First I hated the bond. I thought it was a curse. But now, I'm not so sure." Jack turned to her. "Are you saying you might not reject me at the Red Moon?" Kalira looked away. "I don't know yet." He nodded slowly. "That's okay. I'm still figuring things out too." Then she asked, "If I asked you to stay, would you?" Jack looked up at the stars, then at her. "Yes," he said quietly. "I think I would." They sat together under the moonlight. No titles, no war. Just two people, slowly falling into something neither of them expected. The final move, but peace never lasts. In the shadows of the palace, Lord Varnix met with a hooded figure. "The people love him," Varnix growled. "Even the princess hesitates to reject him." The hooded figure said, "Then we must act quickly." Varnix nodded. "Prepare the weapon. On the night of the Red Moon, we strike. We end the bond. We end them both." End of Part 4. Hook the Red Moon was only 3 days away. The people waited to see if the princess would reject the human or accept him forever. Kalira stood at her window, hand glowing with the mark of the bond. And deep in the palace, Jack stood quietly, preparing for anything because something told him that the final test had not yet come. The Red Moon rose slowly over the skies of Alindra. It was large, glowing, and filled the horizon with a deep red light. Tonight was the night. Inside the great palace, the royal hall was full. Nobles, soldiers, and citizens from across the planet gathered to witness the final part of the bond ceremony. Everyone wanted to know, would Princess Kalira reject the human, or would she choose him forever? Jack stood in the center of the hall. He wore royal clothes, now simple but elegant, made of dark blue and silver cloth. His hands were sweaty. Her heart beat fast. He looked up at the grand staircase. Was walking down slowly, wearing her royal armor and a long silver cloak. Her face was calm, but her eyes were full of thoughts. They stood together. Face to face, the high priestess raised her staff. "By ancient law, the princess may now speak," she said. "She may choose to accept the bond or reject it." Everyone fell silent. Kalira opened her mouth to speak. Boom. A massive explosion shook the palace. The walls cracked, and dust filled the air. Screams echoed through the hall. Guards rushed to protect the princess. From the smoke, a large machine floated in dark, spiked, and covered in weapons. It was controlled remotely. A voice rang out. "This union is a lie. The human must die, and the throne must be claimed by true blood." Jack recognized the voice. Lord Varnix. The weapon fired a blast toward Kalira. Jack didn't think. He jumped in front of her. The blast hit him directly and sent him flying across the hall. He crashed into a pillar and fell, unmoving. "Jack!" Kalira screamed. She ran to him and knelt beside him. His clothes were burned. His face was pale. But he was alive, barely. Guards fired back at the machine. Explosions shook the floor. Kalira stood up, face full of fire. "You want a real queen?" she shouted. "Then watch what I do." She drew her twin swords and leaped toward the machine. The princess fights for her husband. Kalira moved like lightning. Her blade sliced through metal. The floating machine fired again and again, but she dodged every blast. She climbed on top of it and stabbed deep into the control core. Sparks flew, the machine exploded in flames. She jumped off and landed near Jack, breathing hard. Varnix's voice came again, now weak and angry. You have ruined our empire for this thing. Kalira turned toward the hidden speaker and shouted, This thing has more honor than you ever did. A choice in front of the world. The high priestess stepped forward again, voice loud and clear. Princess Kalira, the bond remains. The law stands. Now what is your decision? Kalira looked around at her people. They were silent, watching, waiting. She looked down at Jack, who was slowly opening his eyes. He whispered, You don't have to say yes. If you don't want to. She knelt beside him, smiled gently, and said, I want to. Then she stood tall and turned to the high priestess. I accept the bond, she said. Not by accident. By choice. The hall erupted in cheers. A golden light surrounded her and Jack. The mark on their hands glowed brightly, and the air shimmered with power. The sacred bond was now complete. The human becomes a hero. Jack was taken to the healing chambers. Doctors used a Lindgren tech to heal his wounds. For 2 days he rested. Kalira visited him often, sometimes staying all night beside his bed. When he woke fully, he found her sitting by his side.
Albie?
You're still here, he said softly. Always, she replied. Word of what happened spread far across the galaxy. Other empires sent gifts and messages of respect. The human who was once a mistake had become a legend. A new life begins weeks past. The palace was repaired. People celebrated their new royal couple. Jack didn't try to act like a perfect prince. He was still himself, kind, curious, and a little awkward. But he helped wherever he could. He started teaching palace engineers how to repair old systems. He shared human jokes and food with the staff. He played games with alien children. In the gardens, and every evening, Kalira walked beside him. They were different in so many ways, but their bond was real. It had begun by accident, but had grown into something powerful.
1 year later, the stars above Alindra were bright.
A royal celebration was happening again, this time to mark 1 year since the bond was formed. Stood on the balcony with Jack beside her. Can you believe it's been a year? Jack asked. Kalira smiled. I remember the day you stumbled into my wedding and said, I think there's been a mistake. Jack laughed. Still one of my best lines. She looked at him. You changed my life. He took her hand. Changed mine. Then the people below cheered their names. Long live the queen. Long live the human prince. Final words. What began as a mistake, a confused invitation, an unwanted bond. And 2 strangers from different worlds had become a legend. They said the stars themselves had watched in silence that day, and when the red moon rose, it didn't just see a warrior queen and a strange human. It saw love, it saw courage, it saw hope, the bond that was never meant to happen. It became a story told for generations. The end.